We have 7 people on session.
Yay!
Realize, Maria, is the video playing? I suppose so. Hello, everybody. Good morning. We cannot see anybody. This is a new experience for us using this type of platform, but welcome. I'm Maria, and it's going to be confused today because we are here with two Marias, and there is no other way because we both are known by Maria. People know have nicknames, but in our case, we are both Marias. So bear with us. Maureen is our tech host, and she's going to be supporting us. Am I going to wait? There's people joining. We are 35 people.
Yeah,
So
it's
let's wait a
increasing.
little bit. I'm going to wait as people continue to join. So, welcome to the second session of the Makers Festival. We have 550 people that sign up for the Makers Festival. We are very excited to host you all during those 3 days here. So, I hope you would have a lot of fun. And next year, we're going to be celebrating the 20 years that we opened the first Impact Hub in the network. And because of that, we want to start talking about this now so it doesn't become all next year. We invite our Oliver Marlowe and Maria Glaser to share a bit of the story because if today you have an impact hub in your city, if you're working at an impact hub, if you're creating a lot of impact on your ecosystem, these two people were the people who kind of played a big role for you to be able to do what you're doing today. So I'm very humbled to be here with these two people that I know in person. And there is a funny story as well because many times, including one, because I'm called Maria and I'm been here in the network for a long time as well. A lot of people know about Maria Glauser, and she's known by being the first host of this network. So every time people say, "Oh, it's so nice to meet you, Maria. I'm so humbled to meet you," I was like, "I think you're talking about a different Maria." Uh, and I even had a dinner where someone sit close to me, and she guaranteed that she lived with me in London. So I was like, "It was not me." No, no, yeah, it's you. I was like, "No, I didn't live with you." True story. But so I'm very happy to be here with Maria and Oliver. And we can start. I'm not going to introduce them. I'm going to ask them to tell us who they are today. So, Maria, do you want to tell us who you are today and where you are and what you'll be doing?
Okay.
And good
Hi,
morning.
everyone. Good morning. Hola. Buen día. Who am I today? I am waking up today. It's 6 o'clock here in Asunción, Paraguay, where I'm based. So you can imagine me south, depending on where you are. So south from in the globe. The cicadas in summer. It's close. We're close to summer, so the cicadas are already sounding super strong in the garden. I am a cultural producer. I still work. It's been about 12 years now since I'm based back here in Paraguay, and I'm dedicated to reclaiming, recovering public space mostly. So through festivals, cultural festivals, activities in public spaces, old harbor areas, derelict parks. So where nobody wants to be, that's where you usually find me to where it's most I don't know, sometimes dangerous, sometimes people don't want to go, and that's where we want to activate city spaces. That's where I like the most to work with people here. um, what else? I'm a mom. I have 2 girls, and I'm a facilitator also. I love since the early days in the hub, where I also got to know the art of hosting network and practices. I've been involved in convening and facilitating participatory dialogue and also projects, so long-term projects as well. And I'm also a business owner. I have a space called El Granel, which is kind of my hub-like space. In because of course you have to have a space regardless if it's yours or you inhabit it as a member, but some kind of community space where you feel at home with others. And it's called El Granel. You can look it up online, and that's a bit of me. And I do a lot of gardening, and I have a garden, and I grow my food with some part of the food I eat. And I know I'm probably burning stages because I'm not 60 yet, but that's where you find me most of the time. And I'm so excited and so curious to hear more about Oli because we haven't been in touch for so many years. So I'm super excited to know what can you tell us, Oli, about who you are today.
Hey, first of all, though, both Marias, we go back a long way, but Maria, particularly Glauser, like back in the Islington hub. So I got involved back at the beginning, and we designed and made the first one in Islington, and it was always freezing in the winter and super hot in the summer, leaks. It was just proper DIY from the very beginning, but it was an incredible time. And I think just with Maria as well, the work you did for the art of hosting for me is the legacy of the hub. It's bringing people together in space is the fundamental DNA for me of what the hub represents. And then for me, since then, I've done all sorts of things. I worked a long time with a network and continue to do so. So there's a new hub that's opened in Euston in London. I'm still in London. I have two kids as well, 9 and 11. And then this morning I was getting ready and I was having a shower. And my daughter said, "Why do you need to have a shower? Like they're not going to be with you in the room." And I was like, "Yes, that's a good point." And I do various things. I'm an author, so I've written books around space. I can plug them. This one is, I think, really good and probably helpful. It's around innovation. So my work now is a lot to do with bringing people together in space, facilitating, understanding need, mission, purpose, and then finding a way to co-design to some kind of impact, some kind of solution, whether that's the space itself, whether it's programmatic, all those sorts of things. So really aligned with place and the work that the hub continues to do. I also design still, so I do furniture and interiors and all sorts of different things. I do fine art, so I've been making sculpture and filmmaking, going back to some of the things I used to do in the past, and alongside just being a part of the world. I think in this, it's quite a difficult time now, and with kids getting older and a family, there's all sorts of things, but it's such a privilege to be amongst everyone, makers of hubs around the world. And our little moment, that beginning moment where we were in Islington, suddenly exploded. And me and Maria used to go around the world and help that first kind of iteration of hubs. I was actually on the phone the other day with Hinnock in Vienna. So there's all this kind of looking back now, which I think is really fantastic to see where things come from, but really excited to hear about the future.
Yeah. And then going back to that, this is who you are today. And then probably for both of you, like what you did and the foundation of the Impact Hub actually shaped who you are today in your career, right? Like you're both still working with spaces and all of that. But who I think a lot of people probably is very curious now is like on that group of young people who you were at that moment that Impact Hub Islington started. Actually, Hub Islington, not Impact Hub, right? We
Yes, Hub
might have
Islington.
rebranded at some point, but we were called Hub before that. Who you were and in which role you played?
So there was four founders, and I knew Etty from university, so up in Edinburgh. I started a cafe, a not profit artist community run cafe in Edinburgh in 2000. And me and Etty started talking because I was then in London. And so when they were looking at the space, the Candid Art Space top floor behind Islington Tube, I helped the team design it and then make it. And we ran a program of people coming in to volunteer, to help build, to help paint, literally everything we did ourselves except significant things like electricity and heating. Like we had wood burning stoves that we had to carry. Maria will remember this well. We had to carry up all of the pellets for the wood burning stoves right to the top floor. So that very first moment through the winter of 2004-5, we built that first space in Islington.
And I think Maria has something to show us, right, Maria?
Oh, your pictures, amazing.
Like in a TV show, you know.
Here you go.
And look at that.
You can see Maria. Where are you, Oliver?
I'm there in the middle.
No, where are you really?
I can see Maria in the picture.
I like this photo. It was taken at a members AGM, a meeting, one of the meetings we held, a community meeting, and I like the photo because we're both, I don't know, we look like happy, and I don't know, something, a mischievous look in your eyes. I see. I don't know what was happening, but we were probably answering the question we all around the world, all the hubs are asking themselves: how do we reach the potential of this membership and this community? So I think that's probably one of the main questions we still hold in the network. How do we reach the potential that we hold together locally and globally? So that was one of the photos I really like. This is also from the early days in Hub Islington, when we started receiving, probably you remember, Oli, because you were in and out at that time. And you remember the furniture, of course, because you built it. But we started receiving visits, this time the photo from the people in Madrid, from the team in Madrid, community. We in around that time in 2005, 2006, I felt we were like a tourist spot in London for some sort of crowd around the world. So people who knew each other or heard about the hub, anyone, and we know that everyone wants to goes to London at least once a year. If you're in Europe and around, so people were visiting, and it was really hard to get some work done sometimes because we had so many visitors trying to asking the same questions: what's this place? What are you doing? What are the plans? How are you intending to grow? And this was the look of that first hub in Islington in London.
It's obviously incredibly tidy.
Yes. I think people really shaped it, as you can see with their stuff. And you see the burning stove there that Oli mentioned, and the kitchenette. And of course, we collaborated a lot, and we built community because we were all very close to each other in that space. And it was cold, so we had to be close to each other. And this was one of the key moments in the network, of the founding of the network, which was a practice event that Tatiana, Jonathan, and myself organized in 2007, the art of hosting spaces for social innovation, because there were so many people coming to visit and asking, how do you build a hub, how do you start a hub? And being the first host in the first hub, I had the burning question: how do we host spaces? How do we host these spaces? How do we create this experience? What's the experience we want to create? And I had no one really to talk to about that, except Tatiana, who was one of these visitors coming to London and saying, I have a clue. There's an event called the Art of Hosting, and it's happening in a month time, and you should go, even if it doesn't make sense, or because to me it was, I don't know what the words are, I'm new to London, I don't know what it is, and I have no money to go. And she insisted in that, so I went. And then I realized, when I came back, I told Jonathan, now I know what we're doing. I know what we're doing, and it has to do with convening people, answering questions together, doing things together, leading in a participatory way, and it's kind of like hosting an open space that doesn't end. So those were the principles or the clues I brought back. And so then we decided to organize an Art of Hosting dedicated to spaces for social innovation to answer that question. So how do we, as the hosting team, how can we create the conditions for cultivating what we want? And about 30 people from around the world came together, and to my disappointment, people did not want to talk about how do we host these spaces. They wanted to build these spaces, and that was a big surprise also, because we didn't prepare the event for that. But thanks to that event, we had 30 people going back to their places around the world and working together. We started working together and probably building that trust-based and peer-based foundation for what then became the Impact Hub network we see today.
And I can see Henrique Busacos from co-founder of
Yes.
Impact Hub São Paulo on that picture. But Maria, how did you get involved? Because you are a young student from Paraguay in London. How did you got involved on this?
I got involved as a member. So I moved to London because I liked a DJ, a Paraguayan DJ who lived in London.
Who would know that?
Yeah. And I went there for 3 months. I wanted to stay in the south. I didn't want to live in Europe. I was really like south. South is the answer, and I wanted to test some ideas. South, but then he said, "Okay, come 3 months and then go back." And I went there and I stayed for 7 years because of him initially, and then because of the Impact Hub network, because of Hub Islington, because I joined as a member. And it was really early days. There wasn't a set hosting team, and I was there 3 times a week, and I realized things had to be done. The trash wasn't being taken down, or there was no community board. It was really early days. So I started to offer my help because it felt naturally. And then Jonathan and Mark, who was there at the beginning, said, "Do you want to work here? Do you want to help us 1 day a week?" And I think it was first as an exchange for membership, and then they hired me part-time and then full-time, and then I worked very closely with Jonathan, and then I became a co-director with him at the first hub in Islington. And then, as I said, there were people arriving from all over the world, and then there were other hubs popping up, and I was part of the team going to São Paulo to do part of the team. It was myself going to São Paulo, meeting Enrique and Pablo during a first trip to when the task was go and find people who will open the hub in São Paulo. And I think it was a strike of luck, do you say? When you find the amazing people we found, which is Pablo and Enrique there, and the rest is history over there. And then the same thing with Mexico in Oaxaca, because as I mentioned, my passion was also, I was really intrigued to know what we were doing in London. Was it something that was also culturally possible in the South or in other contexts? That was also because I was from the South. It was my passion was to see if the model was also working in other places.
And then a lot of people don't know, but then Maria and Oliver went on for many years supporting the network. Oliver still involved till today. So Oliver also behind the design of Impact Hub King's Cross, the furniture at Impact Hub King's Cross, create guidelines for us. So if you find in the knowledge space, there is a beautiful guideline of how to set up your space with square meters, furniture, how to co-design it. And so on and so forth. Maria, for many years, was also part of the membership committee who actually looking people join the network. So they've been playing many, many roles for many years in the network. And that's a nice picture.
It's funny hearing you guys talk as well.
Mazzetti and Oliver there.
Yes. That was a great. I mean, that was a great one when we went to Milan. And what's really amazing about the network, and it was noticeable from the very beginning, was that it had a magnetism, so it sort of attracted like minds. So it meant that the kind of conversations you were having and the sort of preamble you would need to be able to understand whether this person was someone you could collaborate with, that just happened naturally. So you were always thinking about doing things almost straight away. So that initial energy of new hubs around the world, and Maria describing people coming to visit Islington and that as a tourist attraction almost, the energy was really powerful. And we were doing it. I mean, Maria there as the host, and I came back to kind of lead a design role. And I think one of the key things, which I don't know, it's a hard thing to do with an organic network, is that we weren't very good at codifying and bringing things together. And we tried many times to sort of make sure the learnings of all the different people and all the different groups around the world was held. But one of the things which is proved to be different about the Impact Hub compared to any other type of network of spaces is its global relationship, north, south, east, west. Often it's just North America and Europe, or it's below the equator. Whereas there's something incredibly special about the power that comes out of South America, out of Africa, out of the Southeast Asia, that is part of the network, which you just don't see in any other collection of community spaces.
And at that point, of course, you already started to be ambitious about what Impact Hub could look like, and you start to understand that there was a potential. And also, Pablo and Hikima is going to be very happy because I think you just confirmed, Maria, that they were the second Impact Hub, because they always claim that, but that's another story. um, have you ever imagined that would become what we are today? Have you, like, what success looked like at that point for you? Like when you were like director of design, co-director of Impact Hub Islington, like 2007, like what success looked like on your mind? And was something like we are today, or was something a bit different? How did you describe that?
It's a good
Maria,
question.
you go first.
Okay. For me, at least for me, maybe one of my personal characteristics is that I'm a host. So I was really busy sorting out and finding out what we were doing and what this practice or new profession was about. And Jonathan was next to me, physically maybe, but in his mind, there was all sorts of ideas and also ambition and there was there were those two energies, founding energies, were really important and very complementary to me. So I don't know if he's listening right now or if he will listen at some point. I think it was an interesting interaction that was very that you could feel it in the space. And to me, the hub was that. To me, Hub Islington was the hub, and then we were helping other people create their hubs in my mind. And then this thing called a network and these relationships started to form, and it became something bigger. But it was that the founding energy between hosting and holding what we had and creating the new. I think it's present in all the teams, and sometimes it's a challenge if there's not enough communication of what do we want together. But I'm so happy to have had those two, at least those two energies, because there were more people in the team. um yeah, that. So the vision is my personal vision was very small, and I'm very happy it didn't stay small, because it wouldn't have become this amazing, beautiful thing that we have today.
What about you,
That's
Oliver? Thank you,
That's
Maria.
beautiful. I think so. I didn't get involved in the day-to-day running of hubs, so I was thinking about thinking a lot about how to codify processes around the co-design and to understand how different it is in different locations. So obviously a hub in Sao Paulo, Amsterdam, London, all of these different sort of nuances that are required. But I think that key thing for me when I was going around and meeting hub founders and trying to see if the team was viable and the project was viable, it was the vision of a connected group of spaces and those communities. But I think there was a very pragmatic, simple need to convene in space, which at that time of life, I think, I remember coming to London in 2000 and there being nowhere to go. Like, where do you go to meet people that are like you? Where do you hang out? Where you're not in, you're not at work, you're not sort of socializing, but you're sort of in between. So that energy spread very quickly, and there was different plans and different funding models and all sorts of different ways of trying to work out how the network can grow. And I think one of the most significant things is the network now remains independent. And I think the fact that the network is independent, it's not owned by anyone, it doesn't owe anyone anything, it has its independence, its leadership. That governance took a long time to arrive, and it's so significant. And I think it reflects on the engagement and the understanding and that feeling you get when you're inside the network, which you, again, like I say, you just don't get it in any other type of space. And that feeling came from those first founders, Jonathan, Etty, Maria, and Mark at the beginning. But then I think there was this sense of like, what can we do with this? Where can we grow it? How big can it get? Rather than thinking, what is this for? And how do we connect with people? And how do we grow something organically? And growing something organically is very, very hard. Hubs didn't have money. You go to hubs and you say, let's design a space. It's like, how are we going to do what you have to do yourself? You have to beg, borrow, and steal. All of those things. How do we host a space where you have to kind of try it? There's people you can talk to. Maria will teach you, will help you, but you have to do this, and it will be hard, and it will take 2 years before you're even like, gosh, this is going somewhere. And that kind of commitment, you can't persuade people to do that, right? They need to feel it for that to work.
Okay. And then you already start to say some of them, but in your view, like based on in your journey, what were the challenges that had shaped the network? You mentioned some, and I think the governance is key, right? So when we move to that model that was more like directors, like ownership, to actually the association, I think, in my opinion, as and you mentioned, Oliver, it was a moment that kind of really shaped, like when the governance was figured out. But what are the other challenge that you see that shaped the network? And is there anything that you would do differently if you could go back in time?
Oh, wow. I don't think there's anything I would do differently. I don't know how much people are aware of. In 2009, there was a big meeting, a big gathering in Amsterdam. And that was the moment where it felt like the whole thing could collapse. Because it had grown quickly. There was many people involved. There was people saying, well, I need to do it like this in my location. What about this? There was a lot of energy in different directions at that point. And it's a testament to everyone that was there and sort of getting through that moment that we arrived at that governance structure, or the hub arrived at that governance structure that allowed it to grow. But I think that kind of thing is necessary. I think for things to have a level of resilience and longevity and to be able to hold themselves in the world, you have to go through the tough times, and you have to be able to respond to them. And they're always going to be the same. It's like grasping of power or different directions of vision, or where should we do and what we should focus on, rather than that thing of just letting it unfold how it needs to unfold. And it's messy, and from the inside you look in and think, I don't quite know how this actually functions, but it has life, and that life needs to exist on its own.
Maria?
Adding to that, I think if I look back at the challenges, I go to the same moment in time, that meeting in Amsterdam in 2009. As you said, it was probably the moment when we were all so tense. I don't know how many we were, 70 people or so
Yeah.
in a youth hostel somewhere in Holland, in tiny beds, sleeping in tiny beds. Maybe that was the problem. We were and after that meeting happened after 2 years of being trying to create the network and the foundations and the DNA and the common ground. And it was mostly done with southern hubs, faraway southern hubs, and European hubs. So Italian hubs, and UK hubs, and also Germany was there. Sorry if I forget people. Some places at that time, the very early days. And then just before that meeting, I think a big shift happened when the Americans came on board. So when the Americans came on board, the conversation shifted and the speed of things shifted. To me, it was like a very strong cultural shock that we got as a collective, because they brought a different type of conversations. Like, I need to tell my investor what the value proposition is tomorrow. I don't have time to build these things together like you guys were doing for 2 years, and you're very comfortable building the brand and building the value proposition and all of that. But I need to know, but by tomorrow, and who owns the brand, and how much money, and all these questions that all of a sudden were there on the table and had to be answered quickly. And that was a big, I think, a big change. And the other challenge, so that was a cultural challenge. And also in terms of voices as a global network, that also brought more English speakers at the table, and at a different speed, as I said. So that I say that coming from the south, and there was probably, maybe at that time, there were 4 teams, Italian teams, at the gathering, but you could hear one voice louder than 4, for example. So in terms of hosting and facilitating, that was very interesting, because it wasn't easy. If we didn't work hard, you could hear one voice louder than many other voices, sitting at the same table. So that was also new, in terms of how do we work together globally. And so that was the cultural challenges.
And it's funny, Marie, when you say that too, with that growth, particularly the North American, where I remember people saying, well, can I have the logo? I need the logo. And we were like, oh gosh, we have like 3 versions that we're working on, which, and then it was like, oh, how do we get that kind of particular red? And it's like, well, I don't really know. We just photocopy. And so I think there's that kind of, and I mentioned it before, that sense of how do you codify, of knowing, but also wanting that collective identity to be shared through decision making that is open, rather than one person saying it's going to be like this. And that's really difficult. Like, I know it from my work, and Maria, you know it from your work. Participatory stuff, community-based stuff, part of it is it takes time, it takes energy, and it's hard work, but the outcome is a different impact. I mean, I remember those conversations with the Americans saying, can you just tell us which chairs to buy, how many desks we need, what color to paint the walls, and that kind of different approach to saying we want to open 30 hubs in the next 18 months. And it's like, okay, this is a different proposition to that. We're not opening McDonald's, right? Like it's a different proposition, and that took a while for that to break through. Some people get it immediately, and others need to sort of see it in action.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just one point, Maria, because you talk about language, just to remind everybody that we have live translation happening right now. So you can actually choose any language. And we know that language is still a barrier for participation, but the platform is doing like translation for, I don't know how many languages, but there are many languages. So you can just use the option CC below, and then choose your language, and you can have it translated. Everything that we are saying live. That's fantastic technology. Go on, Maria. Sorry.
But Oli won't understand me if I speak in Spanish.
Yes, exactly. That's I need the bagel fish.
and just staying in the challenge, because it's really important, because
Yeah.
there are challenges. Life is challenge. Life is developing and unwrapping all the new challenges every day. I think the cultural challenge was one, and then there was another one, which is the personal relationships. How do you protect the trust, friendship, and all of that? And I mentioned that between in relation, for example, with our relationship with Jonathan back in London, where there was probably one idea of what they have as a founder, because he was there before me, what the network should become. And then all these people came in, saying, shaping, co-shaping what the hub was becoming. And that was an interesting but also very challenging thing for people involved there. How much do I want to open, and I can't do it by myself, but then then you have to let go of things, because it's becoming something bigger than yourself. It's definitely part of the hub story, of the Impact Hub story, and the founding energy, and then and what it then becomes. Because I think we didn't speak for 5 years or so, because of that moment in Amsterdam, where things were falling apart and taking different directions. And I was really happy to have met Jonathan 5 years later in Addis, in Ethiopia, in a hub event. And then we talked to each other again, and we could rebuild something that felt like close, very, very healthy, and to be able to close that circle after so much, I don't know, friendship damage. But then we together with this founding team and Oliver as well, so we felt like we gave birth to something, but it really hurt. And so there were things that got damaged through the process.
So just for some people who are really new to the network, just to explain a bit. So there is this story, there is these co-founders that found the network. There were like people mostly based in London, including Maria, Oliver, who were like directors, and this was a company. But then as the network started to expand and more people want to be part of it, there was a shift from that ownership type of model to the association that we have now. And this is what Marie is talking about, that what happened in 2009, that actually late in 2010, when it was like ratified by everybody, by at the time, I think 18 founding impact hubs of the network, just so people understand that shift. So we went from kind of like, let's say, private ownership or co-ownership to an association kind of model, and is the governance model that we have until today, that was crafted in 2010. And I remember when I joined Impact Hub King's Cross, we were still paying our joining fee to the association back in 2012. And I think there is another pivot moment for the network, was the rebranding story. And again, the Americans, and it's not because the Americans, like the shock of culture, right? So it's like how people do things in different way. But that's another story that's also shaped a lot the network. But we're not going to be telling that story today, because today we are talking about like the very early founding days. And then both of you is still very connected. So I want to just ask this question, then open up for questions. So if you have questions on your mind, you can start putting on the Q&A function in there. So for anyone who has questions. So both of you are still working with spaces, and are passionate about this. So what are the lessons learned, or what we would tell us from the network about what the most valuable lessons learned from being part of the network that you took to your current work, and then from your current work to what we are doing today? Because there are at one point some conversations around the importance of the space and how this shapes is that still need that theory of change still need and stuff. I think the network had confirmed that space is still very important for us in terms of our theory of change and what we do. But it'd be nice to hear from you, from your experience, like of space builders. What did you learn, and what you would tell us about that work that you recommend, that you learn afterwards as well?
I think, can I say a little bit just to the last little bit about 2009 and what Maria just
Sure.
did? And I think when I think back on it now, what was incredible about that moment was the amount of people that decided to convene because they wanted to find a way into the future, a different way of doing things. And I think courage, honesty, and trust, which the honesty and trust was broken, I think, in the network in terms of how it was being funded, what was the direction, what was happening. But the courage to come together and to ask those difficult questions and to be inclusive and to say everyone is invited, but we do need a different outcome because otherwise this isn't going to work. And I think that hopefully is a part of the DNA of the association as it grows. And I would say for me, when I work on space design, honesty and trust is really significant. And it is with all hubs, right? Like that sense of saying you need to be open about what's here, what's possible, where you want to take things, and that sense that you're going to try as hard as you need to, and the team is going to come together and work together, becomes inevitable because everyone is powered by that sense of togetherness. And I have taken that, when I think back on it now, I've taken that into all the projects and things that I've done. And Maria, what you said, just that sense of, the challenge is inevitable. There's always challenges, and I think the resilience of the network at this point, with the amount of hubs around the world, is just testament to meeting those challenges.
Absolutely. I agree. I agree with you. And I think it's always, I can't really say, and well, I'm not going to the future yet, because we're still unwrapping some of the lessons learned. And I think, as you say, Oli, so what I learned working with you at the hub, because during those years, I think we shared so much time. Trying to codify the practice and seeing and exploring that interaction between space and community building. And I think because we are the only ones in the conversation today, we can say that was the most important thing.
Yes.
Back then, because no one can say otherwise. I think that's something I bring to all the work I do today. It's something, a few principles like people before space, so building community and then build space, so in that order is something that that's something
Absolutely.
I still practice, and I think I preach. I can almost say that we should focus first on that, the function and the people, and then the structure. And it also goes to organizational building and network building and group building. When you go to meetings, and structure tries to be in place before the relationships are there, before the relationships. So I think people before structure is something that, or connection before structure is something, one of the premises that I bring back, that I use. And also the right mix of people, so in terms of diversity needed, so who needs to be in this conversation and what kind of talent, because that's social engineering. It's also for in teams, when building teams and also building communities. Attraction and not marketing is something I also I learned. These are all things I learned while working with you guys in back then in at the hub, growing the hub. The power of good conversations and questions, and that's that interaction between the Impact Hub network and the art of hosting practice was to me, as I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, was something that was very unique, and I still use it every day at on how I look at the world, how I look at projects and community building. That's something really important.
And it's worth also saying, I think, to describe co-working, and co-working developing alongside what the journey of the Impact Hub. And I've designed many, many co-working spaces and been involved in organizations that have done that. But there is a significant difference, and I think Maria touches on it, which is so significant. Community first, space second. Because if you have the community, the space will make sense to itself. You'll know what you need, you know how to design it, you know where it needs to be and how it needs to function. And that, I think, is the piece that is sort of backwards to the way that the world works nowadays. The world is like, let's build a space and then let's sell it to customers. And I think the Impact Hub, if it holds on to that DNA, then maybe it transcends space. Maybe the spaces become very different. I mean, they are very different, right? The Oaxaca hub that you're working on, Maria, completely different to the London hub, but still with the same DNA. And I think that freedom to experiment as required for your context in terms of that need, that design need, is really significant.
Thank you both. People are making notes of all those comments. I have a question from Eloise from Berlin. She said, we hear a lot of talk about Impact Hub being a pioneer. It's in its opening day, right? So basically, especially like this concept of co-working, I still want to say that we invented this. Now
true.
we are 20 years old, and I think we did, but what we should do or be to stay pioneers?
Go on, Marie.
Well, thank you, Ali. I think, well, at least two things. One is to have that conversation with the people around you, with everyone, with your friends, with your family, with your colleagues, as a community, as a local community. So having that question, the power of questions, is too important. I think it's because no one, the answers, the true answers, come from within. So you have to be involved in answering and in figuring out what the meaning for you personally and locally means, and then you share with others. But I think the most important thing is to have that experience through your own self, your body, and the bodies around you. So the people who are around you. I really believe in local contributions and local voices. So I think that should be the starting point before you go out to the world. Because if you start outside, probably you're missing uniqueness, your unique voice, you as a person, and what gift you bring to life, and the creator or the creators gave you. I think first you listen inside, around you, and then global. And I really like that this concept of, which I borrowed from Meg Wheatley. Maybe you know her. I will post on the chat later. She's a speaker, an amazing woman who really guide us. Well, one of the creators of the double loop, this paradigm shift. And well, she speaks lately. She's 80 something now, and she speaks very lately. She speaks of a lot about aisles of sanity. And I really like that concept, because she says there are so many challenges around the world. I don't believe we can radically change the world anymore as we thought 20 years ago. Things are decisions are not made in conference rooms or at the coffee breaks of those conference rooms where all the powerful people in the world. Well, she used to believe that, and now she says she doesn't believe that anymore. Because it hasn't worked, or at least how it was done. But instead of that, what she proposes now is aisles of sanity. So people really being aware, being able to perceive where in your local community, or if it's your global community, the same, but in your close community, where can you feel that sanity and that coherence of what you feel is important in the world as a human being, and work with that, and not trying to fight everything and everything, not to have this global scale idea that you can't, and then you get frustrated, but find that those spots and those energy spots and coherent spots where you can collaborate and really bring out your gifts, what you know and what you can. And that if you're able to do that with other people around you, then you truly have a human experience, because we know things, we see we're witnessing the dying of the natural world, and it's something really sad and really big. And so that I think what we can do is get together. And I think then the network has that potential and that vision and that purpose of bringing people together and seeing what we can do and maybe contribute to creating that coherence in leadership and how we collaborate, and to have a human contribution and a true human experience that I hope that gets, if that makes any sense. But that's where I see that could be the pioneering um, vision for today, maybe one of them.
I think,
Yeah.
What do you
thank
think,
you.
Ollie?
I think I totally agree with what you're saying, and I also, it reminds me of the little saying, which is that the bee doesn't waste any time trying to persuade the fly that eating shit is not tasty. The bee stays with the honey, the nectar. And I think we spent a lot of time, and I think if you look back on the last 20 years, like Maria is describing, things have actually got worse in general. But there are, even though they've got worse in general, loads and loads, millions of really powerful communities and moments. And I think it's demonstrating that and living that in a way that you can resist the onslaught of whatever is around you, whether it's climate change or political situations. And I think that sense of the energy that you waste persuading others is actually the energy that you can direct to find others that agree with you, that understand you, that aren't in an echo chamber, but are diverse and around the world, but are able, you can have those conversations straight away. And I think the Impact Hub is uniquely placed. And I think that relationship for me around innovation, which is civil society, government, and business, that civil society, global civil society that the hub has from north to south, east to west, is unique in the world. And there is opportunities, I think, where organizations will look to the hub in the future because they will have run out of ideas and they will say, how are you managing to do this? And that conversation, when that happens, becomes really powerful. It's a similar thing to what we had at the beginning, where people came to London and said, how does this work? Like, can we do this? And I think that demonstration and holding onto a DNA, staying independent, describing and understanding your own destiny, people, then they do come every day, right? They come and ask, how does this work? How do I join?
We're still growing, and still like attracting people from different places every day, right? There are people curious about and what. Now we have more things codified. Thank you, Oliver, for pushing
Good.
that from the beginning. So it's a bit easier now if people want to start an Impact Hub. But still, we don't have that. I think some people come and sometimes they have the expectation that they would get like a kind of franchisee package in that sense, and we don't, because Impact Hub take different shapes and forms depending on your context, on your local community, and so on. Oh, people are not listening to me. Oh, people can hear me. I think so, right? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
I get testing this. I get some message. So, look, we are getting close to the end of this session. I don't know. Do you have any special wish, like for us, or something that I don't know? What is your vision for the future? Like, if you have a wish, if you have a wish want, what you would wish for the Impact Hub network, or what we, in your view, like, of course, you guys mentioned a bit, but what we should be focusing on and which direction you would love to see us as a founding. We are really, really curious to hear. And of course, we grew, and I think we took different shapes and formats and all of that. But now that we are here, and we would love to listen from you, what you would wish and want for the network, so we can take that on.
That's a great question, and thank you so much for inviting us both for answering that question together. I didn't know the answer before this session, so through this conversation, I feel I can dare to say something, with a lot of humility, because I'm not in the everyday running of the hub, of the Impact Hub network, for many years now. So what I say could be completely wrong sometimes. So I say it with a lot of humility. But I hope the network focuses its attention not to build a network so much or starting new hubs as to, so not the ladder, but actually we are already there. We already have what we need and who we need, and the focus could be in the content of the conversations and the contributions and answering the questions and the harvesting and the of all the voices. So I think the network is in a unique position. If I think of the world and the global challenges, I think it's in a unique position, and it has the resources to bring people together, maybe think things and challenges together, try out things, and I know it's doing that. So I'm not saying it should do something that it's not doing. It's already doing it, and also providing a new type of leadership that isn't the political or what we see in the news. So it could be that bringing that voice and making that voice be more available, so that the world, as I think someone wrote here, as I have it the direct translation, so I can't really say it in English, but a falling tree makes more noise than a forest growing. I think Alberto wrote it right now. So how can we put this mic to be able to perceive how that forest is growing, and not only paying attention to that falling tree, because I don't think we're going to make make something from that tree. Yes, it's going to compost and all of that, but I think
Yeah.
people want to hear and want to see the growing part. So I think, I don't know if it's doing or doing enough, but not being part of a network, I want to know more. So I want to know more, what are the voices, what's the new, where are the new things happening, where should we watch, what should we pay our attention to. Yes, around that.
Yes, brilliant.
Not
I
building
think,
the network.
yeah, listening to you, Maria, it reminds me of like our times together, and I think that sense of going deeper, like the network. We would have been having this conversation 20 years ago, where there was 3 or 4 hubs, and we would already be thinking, "My God, there's 3 hubs." And so that sense of going deeper where you are, and those connections that are important. But I would also say that I've seen, and it happened to us, and I've seen it happen to so many, the exhaustion and the burnout that comes from being part of the network, starting your own hub. It's hard work, and I would say look after yourself. I think being a host, and watching Maria work and watching Maria's contemporaries work, that energy to stay present in a conversation and be part of a community and host that community is not easy, and it's tiring. And I think there's something about the resilience of the network as a structure, but I think the people in it, all of you, to look after yourselves and know that it comes, and the vision will take care of itself, but don't burn out. Don't drive so hard that you lose the energy and you just get frustrated, because it's not an easy thing. And I salute all of you that have opened hubs around the world. It's not an easy thing to do.
Thank you both for your time, for sharing, for being here, for continue to care about the network, for also continue to give your time to us. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And we continue the conversation. I hope you guys stay with us the next days. There is like another 3 days of full content. I'm gonna put it here on the chat, guys, the new knowledge space. So we just had redesigned a bit our knowledge space, so there is a surprise for everybody there. And so check it out. Thank you to the team who is behind that, and also check it out in there. Oliver's content around space and Maria's content about community hosts. So both of them here materials and things that they had codified and made for the network. It's available on the knowledge page, so don't forget to check it out. So for now, thank you very much. The next session is starting right now, is a Picha Kucha stories with entrepreneurs from all around the world, so we wait for you there. Thank you very much. See you.
Thank you. It's a real honor. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, Ali. Bye, Maria. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Maria.